Last year, a finance director I know approved a software renewal. He checked the invoice, same vendor, same product. The number looked familiar. He signed it. 3 months later, his team found out they were paying for 140 seats. 47 people had left the company. Nobody had noticed. That single renewal cost his company roughly $180,000 in software nobody was using. The invoice didn't lie exactly. It just didn't tell the truth. In this video, I'm going to show you the 5 things your software invoice hides, and what you can do about each one before your next renewal. I've been on the buying side of enterprise software negotiations for over a decade. I've seen these patterns repeat across industries, company sizes, and vendor types. Let's get into it. Here's the uncomfortable truth about SaaS budgets. Industry research consistently shows that between 25 and 35% of enterprise software licenses are either unused or significantly underutilized. That's not a rounding error. For a company spending $2 million a year on software, that's potentially $600,000 sitting on a shelf. Now, finance teams treat the invoice as the cost of the software. It isn't. The invoice is the starting point of a cost calculation that most companies never finish. Let me show you what's missing. Hidden cost number 1, integration and maintenance. The vendor quotes you a license price, clean number, easy to approve. What it doesn't include is what your IT team will spend keeping that tool connected to everything else. In enterprise environments, integration and maintenance costs typically run between 15 and 30% of the license value every year, not just in year 1. API maintenance, middleware updates, the internal IT hours when the vendor pushes a new version and breaks something. None of that is on the invoice. Before any renewal above $50,000, ask your IT team, what did we actually spend maintaining this tool last year? The answer will surprise most finance leaders. And here's a question worth sitting with. Does your organization even have a process for capturing those hidden IT costs? Or do they just disappear into project budgets? Hidden cost number 2, and this one is where most of the money hides. Shelfware. Shelfware is software you're paying for that your team isn't using. It gets created in 3 ways. People leave the company, teams switch workflows, or the tool simply doesn't deliver what was promised. Now, most finance leaders understand the first driver. Someone leaves, their license stays active. That's obvious once you see it. But there's a second driver that almost nobody talks about. And it's often bigger. Employee rotation. Let me give you some numbers. In the United States, overall employee turnover runs at around 33% annually. In the European Union, it's lower, around 17%. But here's what most people miss. Internal rotation, people moving between roles and departments within the same company, is actually higher in Europe, running between 18 and 22%, compared to 10 to 12 in the US. Now think about what that number means for your software budget. In a 500-person European company, up to 110 people change roles internally every year. Each one of them arrives at their new position, carrying the license stack from their old one. Does the person who just moved from finance to operations still need the same financial planning tool? Does the sales manager promoted to head of marketing still need the full sales CRM license? Nobody asks. The license just sits there, and it auto-renews. A proper software offboarding process needs to cover 2 scenarios, not 1. The first is the external leaver, someone who leaves the company entirely. Deactivate their accounts within 48 hours, reclaim the license, document what they had for your next renewal right-sizing. The second, and this is where almost every organization fails, is the internal mover. Someone changes departments, they get new tools for the new role, but the old licenses, nobody touches them. The question that saves money isn't, did this person leave? It's, does this person's new role actually require the same set of licenses as the old one? Here are 2 questions I'd encourage you to ask your organization this week. First, do you receive regular updates from your HR team about internal role changes in time to act on software licenses before the next renewal? And second, is your offboarding process built only for people who leave the company, or does it also cover employees who simply change positions? If the answer to either of those is no, you're almost certainly paying for licenses nobody needs anymore. Before any renewal, run 2 lists: everyone who left the company in the last 12 months and everyone who changed roles. For both groups, are those licenses still active? That 30-minute audit will likely pay for itself many times over. Hidden cost number 3. Price escalation clauses. This one is buried in the contract, usually in the master service agreement, not the order form people actually read. Most enterprise SaaS contracts include a right for the vendor to increase your price annually, typically 3 to 8% per year. Over a 3-year term, a 5% escalator means you're paying 15% more in year 3 than in year 1. Most procurement teams discover this at renewal, not before signature. Always negotiate a price cap or a fixed renewal rate at initial signature. This is one of the highest value clauses in any enterprise software contract, and vendors will agree. If you ask before signing, ask yourself, when did you last read the price escalation clause in your top 5 software contracts? And do you know what your renewal rate will be in year 3? Hidden cost number 4. Forced upgrade costs. Vendors release new versions. Sometimes that's great. Sometimes it means your team has to relearn workflows, IT has to retest integrations, and you effectively pay for implementation a second time. The vendor calls it a feature upgrade. Your internal cost is real. Before signing any major enterprise contract, ask specifically, what is your major version release cadence? And what does a version migration require from our internal team? That answer tells you more about the real cost of that software than the price sheet ever will. Worth asking your IT lead, how many unplanned re-implementations has your team absorbed in the last 2 years because a vendor forced a major upgrade? Hidden cost number 5. Exit costs. The cost nobody thinks about when they sign. Data extraction, migration to a new system, retraining your team, contractual exit penalties, the period where you're running both systems in parallel. For enterprise software, this can easily reach 30 to 50% of annual license cost as a one-time expense. Knowing this exit cost before you sign changes how you negotiate. Vendors who make it hard to leave will make it hard to negotiate renewals. Factor in the golden handcuffs before you put them on. And a final question on this one. If you decided today to move away from your largest software vendor, do you actually know what that would cost you? And does that number change how you're approaching the next renewal? So let me pull this together. When you see a software invoice, what you're looking at is the base of a pyramid, the license fee. And it's typically no more than 60% of the real annual cost of that software to your organization. The other 40%, integration, shelfware amplified by rotation, price escalation, forced upgrade costs, is absorbed silently across IT, finance, and operations. The companies that negotiate the best software deals aren't necessarily smarter. They've just learned to see the whole pyramid, not just the invoice. If you want to put this into practice immediately, I've put together a free CFO procurement toolkit. 3 documents you can use starting today. A 7-strategy PDF guide that expands everything I've covered here. A vendor scorecard in Excel, weighted scoring for up to 4 vendors with a full TCO calculator built in. And a renewal checklist. Everything you need to do 180 days, 120 days, 90 days, and 30 days before any major renewal. It's free. Link is in the description. Download it and use it. Next week, I'm covering the single best time of year to buy enterprise SaaS. And it's not when your budget resets. Vendors have their own calendar. And once you know it, you'll never renew on their terms again. Subscribe if that sounds useful. See you next week.